Let me push that and then we'll get started. So, all right. Well, thank you again for being here, everybody. My name is Heather Mayfield and I'm our secondary counseling coordinator in Frisco ISD. And this means I get to do tons of fun things like talk to parents and kids and students about going to college and admissions. And one of the most important questions from all of us about learning how to pay for college and getting ready for that venture. So we have with us tonight Bethany Hubert from Going Merry, and so I'm going to turn this over to her. And thank you again for coming tonight.
Thanks, Heather, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I know this is not always the most fun thing to talk about, and it is obviously an awkward time of day for some people, but I really appreciate y'all joining us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, so bear with me while I get my screens all set up. We do have you all on mute right now, but at the end we will have a question and answer session. And if at any point in time you have a question while we're going through all this, feel free to drop it into the chat. We will make sure to circle back at the end. Let me just pull up my chat so it doesn't disappear on me. I am going to drop a couple links in the chat at the very end of our presentation. It will just be like how to make an account and stuff like that if you want one. But at this time, I will just get going. Again, thank you so much. My name is Bethany. I support all of the schools across Texas that use Going Merry. What we're going to do tonight is just cover everything relevant to financial aid, and we'll have a good question and answer session at the end. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat as they come up. If you've never heard of Going Merry, we are a completely free platform to the school and to students. It's something that students can use from the point that they are 13 years old all the way through their college career into their PhD programs if they would like to. And it's basically a one-stop shop for finding and applying to financial aid. What we're going to do now is I'm going to take my Going Merry hat off and we're going to talk more general about financial aid, but a couple of times I'll probably highlight a few features that we have that specifically make some big pain point in the financial aid process easier. So let's get going. What is financial aid? Financial aid is quite simply just any money to help you pay for college. It comes from many different places and it comes in many different forms. It can come from the federal government, the state government, nonprofits, community-based organizations, private companies even. I like to classify it in two different groups: the kind of money you do have to repay and the kind of money you don't have to repay. The kind of money that you don't have to repay is going to be grants and scholarships, work-study programs, special programs for your state like Texas has where foster students don't have to pay for tuition, all kinds of good stuff like that. And the types of aid you do have to repay, we obviously want to minimize that as much as possible. Those are going to be student loans. We'll go into more depth about student loans and the different ones that are out there, but I do want you to know that there are basically two categories: federal and private. Now, when we talk about all this, we want to really consider what type of aid you want to leverage. And you want to make sure you don't put a huge burden on you as a parent for your future or your student's future. It's also really important to understand that, especially with the extreme increase in the cost of college, there's no shame in needing a student loan. Most students do have to take them out nowadays, but we want to make sure you don't take out more than you need and that you're able to repay it quickly and that, we don't over leverage them. I'm also going to use a ton of specific terminology. So at the end of this, I'll also send out a glossary of terms. That way you can reference back while you're getting all those award letters. I know those are trickling in now, and it'll give you a good reference guide. The next thing I want to talk about is the application timeline. If you are a senior or a parent of a senior, I don't want you to stress out too much. Unfortunately, a lot of students don't start until their senior year. But if you are an underclassman or a parent of an underclassman, or you have an underclassman student, there is some stuff that you need to be taking care of before senior year. You want to make sure you're looking for and applying to scholarships. There's a lot out there for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, especially juniors over the summer when they're rising seniors. There's a lot of scholarship opportunities that come up for those students. You also want to make sure you have a conversation with your student about all post-secondary options. What are their career goals? What are the things that they're good at? And what is going to help them get there? Sometimes it's a trade school or an apprenticeship. Maybe it's not a traditional college education on the front side. Maybe they take 2 years and go to an apprenticeship and get the skills they need, and then they further their education later. So you want to make sure you talk to your student about all those options and find the right fit for them. I also like to encourage parents and students to have really transparent and open conversations about the funding that you've saved for their college career. The reality is most students don't realize what's out there and what their parents have saved for them until basically the parents taking out student loans for them. So we want to make sure that conversation happens as early as possible so the student knows to prioritize the FAFSA, their academics, and scholarship applications. It's also really important to have frank conversations to your student about the return on investment for their education. And you want to have that before they're really picking their college. When you have these conversations, pull up the Bureau of Labor Statistics, look at the career path they want to take, director of marketing, and go and find what the average income is for that. And then ask them, okay, you want to go to this school and you want to have that degree? How long is it going to take you to repay that amount of student loans with that amount of income? And have those conversations with them so that they realize just how much it matters. It's also really important to create a cost-conscious college list. You don't want to just pick a school because it's your favorite or because that's your favorite football team or whatever. You want your student to think, what is my budget and what makes sense for me too? Now, once you are into your senior year, obviously the FAFSA and the TASFA are super, super important. If you haven't done them yet, make sure they get done. We don't want any student doing a waiver because it is a graduation requirement. We want everyone to do that FAFSA and TASFA. I'll get on my soapbox later about that, but just know that that's super important. You also want to make sure your student is continuing to apply for scholarships regularly. And you also want to talk to their top choice schools and talk to those financial aid offices about possible tuition discounts or scholarships your student might be eligible for. They will be the subject matter experts on the potential options that they have at their school, and they might know of something that's hard to find on the website and be able to point your student to that application. Again, it's super important to continue in that senior year, those transparent conversations about the potential need for student loans. You don't want it to get to July before you tell your student you're going to need $5,000 in student loans. You want to have it as early as possible, and you want it to continue because then they're going to prioritize applying to financial aid. And lastly, we really want to make sure you appeal to your top choice schools. If you go and you know UT is your favorite school, and if you got an extra $3,000, you could go there free, make sure you're appealing. Talk to that financial aid office, find out when that deadline is, and see if they will give you more money, because oftentimes they will. Now, this is just another way to look at that, exactly what I just said. This is a visual of a student account on Going Merry and how we emphasize to them every time they log in the correct order of operations as a senior. Now, if this was a junior or a sophomore, they would see scholarships as number one, but as a senior, until they complete their FAFSA and their state grant applications, they're going to see those two first. We then hammer home the importance of choosing a college with your budget in mind and then appealing for more aid before you even look at student loans. So we hope that this helps the students remember that, and then hopefully whenever they talk to you about it, they're coming from that place too. Now to really hop on the soapbox, if you are a parent and you have not had your student do their FAFSA or their TASFA yet, get on it. Get on it. It opened up in October. It is so, so important. And just about everything in financial aid now is tied to those two things. If you think, hey, this is just inconvenient and I don't want to do it, and where you don't qualify for a Pell Grant, well, guess what? Financial aid is more than the Pell Grant, and the FAFSA can even be what's used to determine if your student can appeal for more aid, or if they can get a better a rate on a student loan, or if they can even be considered for certain merit-based scholarships. So make sure you're prioritizing that. That FAFSA is going to determine your SAR, which is your student aid report, and it's going to determine your EFC. That's basically just a fancy way of saying it's going to tell the school how much money you can pay for your student to go to school and what their financial need is going to be. State aid is oftentimes something that runs out, and college-based aid, it often runs out. That's why it's so important to get it in as soon as possible, but do know that it's not too late and you should still do it. The reason why Texas especially put in the FAFSA graduation requirement is because 92% of seniors who completed the FAFSA enrolled by the November following graduation versus 51% who didn't, and who didn't complete their FAFSA. This is mainly because of the amount of aid opportunities extended to students who complete the FAFSA and the TASFA is substantially higher than the students that don't. It reduces the net cost of attendance because of grants and scholarships, work study programs, and all that good stuff. The FAFSA is going to open the door to federal and state-based aid, institution-based aid, student loans that might have better terms, the ability to appeal your financial aid offer, and even scholarships. I will also say that Texas has a really great opportunity for a lot of students with the TASFA being there. Most states don't have a state aid application still. And you also have a really great amount of resources like the Texas Equal Opportunity Grant, and you have the Texas Grant and the tuition that's free for all students that might be in foster care. So there's lots of really great resources that Texas has put in place to make sure your students succeed. I do want to also say that last year, only 66% of Frisco ISD seniors completed their FAFSA, and we want to get that obviously to 100% because that's where it should be. So make sure you're doing your FAFSA. If you did do a waiver for your student, contact your counselor, because that doesn't mean that's the end all be all. You can still submit your TASFA and your FAFSA. Now, what you're seeing on the right side of your screen is just kind of how Going Merry helps. We have a product called the FAFSA Made Easier. It's similar to how TurboTax works. One question at a time, easy to understand language, support all the way along on our platform. It even gives your counselors a couple of extra tools so they can make sure they can support your students too. It is completely free, and we do have things like systems to basically help students that are DACA students maybe self-advocate and find out if they qualify, or if they don't qualify for the FAFSA, directing them to the TASFA. So that's always really great. I'm going to take my Going Merry hat off again, but I do just want to stress, please, please, please do the FAFSA for your student. It can make the difference of thousands of dollars in savings of going to college. Now let's talk about scholarships. I have the privilege of working with a lot of schools, talking to a lot of counselors, and talking to a lot of students that win a lot of scholarships. And so what I've taken from them is just some tips and tricks of how you can win more. There's kind of 4 categories and 4 strategies that we've heard repeatedly from the students that win a lot of scholarships. They choose better odds. They apply to more scholarships. They know about all of their financial aid options, and they choose a college that matches their budget. Now, when I say choose better odds, I mean choosing a scholarship that might be less competitive because it's a local scholarship and only 2 other people applied, or choosing a scholarship that has an essay because most students don't want to write an essay, and so you get fewer applicants to those. That increases your student's chance of actually winning that scholarship. Now, there's a couple more categories we can talk about, like local scholarships, and I'll tell you how you can find those for your student for Frisco ISD. But I do just want to say that they're one of the most commonly overlooked components of financial aid. $4 billion, that's with a B, $4 billion of financial aid was left on the table last year, and a lot of that was local scholarships that never received an applicant. That's crazy. That shouldn't be the case. And Frisco has an incredible opportunity. There's like 370 some odd scholarships. It's so many. So students need to be applying to those and prioritizing those because they have the best chance of winning those. You also want to make sure you're talking to your counselor. So if your student has any questions about local scholarships, reach out to that counselor and see if they can help you out. You can also check on Going Merry. We do list a lot of local scholarship programs and a lot of regional scholarships. So we might have a couple of extras that your student can find, especially if your student was a transfer student. We have a lot of times students that have moved from another district, and they can find scholarships from their old district. And the last piece of that is check with your college. A lot of colleges don't have like a common app for their scholarships. You have to go to every single section of their site in every department to find the one you're looking for. But if you talk to the financial aid officers at the school, they might know of one and they can point you in the right direction. The next thing I like to tell students is to choose to apply to small awards. You will have a better chance of winning because a lot of students don't want to apply to them. They don't feel like it's worth their time. But the reality is a lot of those don't get any applicants in a year. And that's a big mistake because $400 or $500 scholarships add up really quickly. And a lot of times those smaller awards don't have a ton of like essay requirements and stuff like that. So make sure your student is checking those out because it might be able to cover their books for a semester, or it might cover their meal plan, that kind of a thing. Oftentimes these smaller awards will also have higher class rank, like a sophomore version of that scholarship once they're in college. So make sure you check and see if there's similar scholarships for that exact niche, or if that scholarship will allow you to reapply the next year as a rising sophomore in college. Again, I'm going to talk about essays. Most students don't want to do them because they don't feel comfortable or they feel like it's too much time consuming. I will say you don't have to rewrite the essay. You can sometimes reuse essays. And if you feel like you need some help with them, make sure you look at your local community colleges, talk to your counselor and see if they know about any kind of resources that you have local to you for essay writing workshops. Going Merry also has a lot of them. We obviously see a lot of essays and we hear from a lot of providers of scholarships of what they look for in an essay. So we provide some helpful tips too. The next one is starting early. Again, completing the FAFSA as early as possible. And if you haven't done it yet, do it now. Also stressing the importance that scholarships are not just for seniors. If you haven't started applying and you have a junior, make sure they start now. Also talk about budgets sooner. A lot of times that conversation happens after the students fallen in love with the school. They haven't applied to scholarships. It's April. They're already stuck on going to one school. And then this parents looking at them going, I don't know why you want to take out $17,000 in loans a year to go here when you can go over there for free. So it's really important to talk about that. And sometimes you can motivate your student to be more involved with applying to scholarships. And the last one is keep going. A lot of students make the mistake of thinking that applying to scholarships is just what you do in senior year. It's not. There's scholarships out there all the way through PhD programs. I talk to counselors all the time returning for their education and going and finding scholarships on Going Merry. So definitely make sure you're looking into that for your student and encouraging them to continue to look while they're going through their college career. And the last little one is just, again, me putting on my Going Merry hat. We call it magic on Going Merry. We put the best match to the very top and we match it with the next upcoming due date so students know what to prioritize. We vet every scholarship on our platform and we autofill anything that we can, and we match the scholarship to the student. So if they filled out their profile, they know that every scholarship they're seeing is real and they qualify for it. So they can just keep going and go on through their applications really quick, saving them time. Going Merry is, of course, not the only resource out there, but I do think we are the best. We have the largest database in the country, and we do things a little bit different with the matching and vetting of every scholarship. But there are other platforms, and sometimes a scholarship provider will choose to exclusively list in one place, especially with college websites. That's usually the only place those scholarships are listed. So make sure you look everywhere because sometimes you might only find it in one place. I'm going to shift to talking about local scholarships because Frisco ISD does list their local scholarships on Zello. If your student hasn't talked to you about that yet, or you haven't looked at it, make sure you get on there. There are lots of local scholarships. You'll have a really robust program here. Again, I will highlight that Going Merry might have some extra ones as well, so make sure you check there too. But the way you're going to find the local scholarships on Zello is by going to Zello and then clicking on college planning. From there, you'll be able to click on local scholarships, and then your student can search and they can sort it by whatever they would like. Now, there is also the Frisco Education Foundation, which is absolutely incredible. I did notice that, unfortunately, the deadline for this year did close for the 2023 seniors, but if you're a junior parent, it closed in December, so make sure you talk to them about that. And there are some extra scholarships actually at the bottom of the website, so make sure you go and check there because there are some more listed now. And again, if you don't know where to start or you feel overwhelmed or you need help finding what to do, go talk to your counselor. They know exactly what to do and they can guide you through the process. The next thing I'm going to talk about is picking the right college. So this is where that cost-conscious college list comes in play. And this is where you're going to evaluate your financial aid award letters. Now, there's a lot of ways to do this. I always recommend checking out the Department of Education information on income from that school that you're looking at. I always recommend looking at Bureau of Labor Statistics for information about that degree and what that is going to send them into in terms of career path and what the income is going to be. So that's always a good resource to look at as well. Going Merry does have a budgeting tool right here. You see it on the left side of your screen, helps your student understand the breakdown of how they're going to pay for college in a really quick and easy visual way. And then this other one over here is also going to be our college cost insights. And I'm actually going to share over here. Hopefully this works the way it should. This is a really incredible tool that basically allows students to go in, learn about how to read a financial aid award letter, plug in their award letters so they can do a side-by-side comparison. And I'm using some local schools here. They can then put in their EFC and their actual family contribution just in case they're different. And they can run some numbers. And with this, they can see a strategy of maximizing their long-term wealth, minimizing their student loan debt, minimizing their costs today, all that good stuff. We explain it so that they can understand what we're doing here. And then we show them a side by side, because financial aid award letters look different at every school. They just do. I don't understand why, but it does. That's the way they do it. I did use the cost of attendance information from Texas A&M, University of North Texas, and Collin College. And in their awards information, I assume that this family has an AGI of $40,000, which means that at both University of North Texas and Texas A&M, they would qualify for Aggie Assurance, or I think it's called like the Emerald Scholars Program at University of North Texas. And basically that just forgives their tuition and their fees with the help of Pell Grants and scholarships for that student, but they get to have their tuition and their fees for free at that school. I also assume that these students got a couple of scholarships because they were great students and they had great GPAs at all of these schools. I showed that these students the student won some work study programs at these two schools, but not at Collin College, and that Texas A&M is offering them more in federal student loans than the other two schools. So you can see here that the overall cost of attendance is far higher at Texas A&M, but because of something called Aggie Assurance, the Pell Grant, and some scholarships, because the student was incredible, they've gotten it down to just a net cost of $6,000. And Collin College is obviously still a lower cost to attend. This is really helpful for students to understand exactly what they're getting into. We do take it a step further though. We explain the financial gap that they're looking at and their options on how to pay that. Obviously, they can pay for it out of pocket. Student loans is typically how most students go, but we want them to know that they have options. And then they can look at their future. So what you're looking at here is Department of Education information on the income from that school on average, based on how much they're looking at borrowing, what an average student loan repayment monthly repayment would be, and how that stacks up as a debt to income ratio for that potential student situation. This is really helpful because unfortunately, a lot of students that went through college with me, they were in a 30 or 40% debt to income ratio when they graduated because they didn't know what they were going to be making when they graduated. They didn't know what their student loan repayments would be or anything like that. So this is really helpful for making sure your student is aware when a situation is a really bad situation for their financial future. We also show them 20 years into the future so they can see how that stacks up and how their long-term financial wealth is going to work out. Sometimes what students see here is, hey, just because I go to this more expensive school doesn't mean I'm going to make more money in the long run. So why am I going to put myself in so much debt to get there? And this really helps them kind of have a realistic expectation and understanding of what they're going to be making in the long run. I think it's also really helpful for parents to see that, you know, your student's borrowing $5,000 a year and they're repaying $60,000 at the end, to understand like just how student loan terms might work. We also explain debt to income ratio because it's a complicated subject for a lot of students. We'll educate your students about loans if they want to learn a little bit more about that. Again, the goal there is just to make sure they don't take out too many student loans, and they only take out what they need and hopefully avoid them altogether if they can. And then through here, they can actually learn about appealing, because hopefully once they see the big numbers that we just showed them, they're like, oh, I need more financial aid. I don't want to take out that loan. And they come in here and they learn how to appeal and they reach out to their college to see if they can get more financial aid. Now I'll talk about that more on this next slide about appealing for more aid. There we go. Now, when a student is appealing for more aid, they can do it for a ton of different reasons. It can be as simple as, that's my favorite school, or it can be, my dad got laid off and our financial situation has completely changed, so please reconsider. The big thing to understand here is that for most schools, they will not consider a financial aid appeal if you did not do the FAFSA. That's just the way that most schools work nowadays. You also want to make sure you reach out to a financial aid officer at the school if this is something you're considering, to make sure you're aware of any tips or tricks or even deadlines that might sneak up on you that you're not aware of. Going Merry does have a really good template in here, and I actually just talked to a student the other day that used our template, and then they won an extra $3,500 in financial aid because they reached out to their school and said, hey, I really want to come here, but I need a little more money. And thankfully their school reconsidered their offer letter and gave them $3,500 more. So that was pretty cool. We're going to talk about the subject that no one likes, student loans. Again, the goal here is to make sure that your student is aware and you as a parent are aware of what they are and how they work. But we also want to make sure that students understand that there's no shame in needing a student loan. The reality is that most students today have to take out a student loan. The cost of college has risen exponentially. It's very unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. And if your student's not prioritizing scholarships like they should, they're probably going to end up having to take out a loan. So let's talk about the options and how they all work. With federal loans, federal student loans, you're going to have to do the FAFSA. There are a few options. You've got subsidized, unsubsidized, and Parent Plus loans. With subsidized and unsubsidized, there's no guarantor needed. So these are going to be open to students that are going to be independent. They often have lower interest rates than private student loans. They have fixed interest rates, so they're easier to repay. And with subsidized loans, they do not accumulate any interest while you are still enrolled in school. With both of them, you do not have to repay while you're in school either. The one thing is you do not have any say in which one you get. So the school could offer you unsubsidized or just subsidized or a combination of both. And the loan amounts do vary by year. I think this year, the maximum amount for undergraduate is like around $12,000 for subsidized and unsubsidized. And again, I will stress, they are not eligible if they did not do the FAFSA. Same thing with the plus loans. You are not eligible if you did not do the FAFSA. They're basically just designed to make up the gap between the cost of attendance and financial need. They do require a credit check, which is different than the unsubsidized loans. They have an origination fee, and they are going to require repayment while your student is still in school. You can defer those repayments, though, in some cases, and they often do have better terms than private student loans and better interest rates. Not always the case, but in most cases they do. You also get some extra protection from your from the federal government for private or for federal plus student loans versus private loans. Private loans are a little more difficult to talk about. I'm going to be very general because the rates and terms and qualities of a private lender are going to vary by who you choose. You can get credit unions or banks or even private companies. The big thing to understand is that lenders are going to look at things like your credit score, your borrowing history, cosigner data, and the amount that your student is considering borrowing. There are companies like Earnest that are going to match your rate to give you more competitive options. But really the most important thing is that you research. Look at the rate options that you have, look at their terms, look at their history with their customers. Do their customers like them, or do they say they're awful to work with? That kind of stuff is super important. You know, if having a mobile app to manage it is going to be majorly important to you, definitely consider that, because that's something that matters, because you're probably going to be dealing with this for at least a few years. I will also talk about some common pitfalls that we see with student loans. A lot of times it comes with not picking a college that the student can afford, them not taking the time to apply for scholarships, taking out more loans than a specific degree can really compensate and pay for in the long run, not doing the FAFSA, and then in cases where the student has extended federal student loans, not taking advantage of them. And I will just say, Going Merry is totally free. Your students are welcome to use it. We do help with everything from FAFSA and college cost insights and all that kind of good stuff. And you can use it on your phone or on a computer. I will also really quickly just drop a few links before we open it up for questions and highlight something new that we are doing here at Going Merry that we're actually going to be offering to you Frisco parents. The first link that you see here is how you can create a Going Merry account. As this is a student link. Oh, my links didn't work. Hang on, bear with me. Technology did not cooperate here. The first link is going to be how you can create a student account. If you are a parent, we are about to launch a parent account so that you can manage your student stuff and look at what they're doing, and then also learn about financial aid and be on top of things. So if you would like to make an account, you are more than welcome to do that today. We just ask that once you do it, you go into your profile and go under personal information and change who are you to parent. Once our parent account launches in a couple of weeks, you'll be automatically upgraded to that parent account, so you have access to it, and it's super simple for you. The next thing I'm going to link here is a program that we are kind of working on where we're going to offer one-on-one support to some students. We're piloting a new program that's completely free still. It's basically a paying for college program for eligible families. We'll work on the process with you completely one-on-one and help you figure out the best way to pay for college, from appealing to financial aid award letters to comparing student loan interest rates, the whole gambit. If you would like more information, there's a form that I'm about to link here, and you can basically click on that, put your information in, and then we'll reach out to you with more information. The last one I'm going to link here, and I'll also send this out to the counselors, that way they can provide it to you in a better format, is actually our parent newsletter, where we send out tons of information that can help you as a parent in navigating financial aid with your students. So feel free to sign up for that. You'll get information like this sent out to you pretty regularly, which is pretty great. I'm going to scroll up. I saw a lot of questions rolling in while I was talking, so I'm going to come up in here and start answering them. But if you have a question while I'm working on these, feel free to continue to drop them in the chat, or even just come off mute and ask as well. Should we pay off the house before applying to the FAFSA? If that is what's going to delay you getting your FAFSA in, no, you should do your FAFSA now. That would be my advice. I can't really think of a scenario where that advice would differ, but if you really need some help with that, feel free to reach out. I'll also just drop my email in here, and I can connect you with one of our financial aid experts on our team. And then they can look at your specific situation and answer it more thoroughly with more details, if that makes sense. I don't want to ask you for a ton of details. We're on a huge Zoom call. Let's see, I have never seen on the FAFSA that the home mortgage affected how much financial aid you received. I do not know for sure if it would have be considered an asset if it was paid off. I don't think it would either. I just, sometimes there's more nuance in that question that we need more details on, and it might change the answer. But to my knowledge, like Heather said, it really shouldn't impact it, and that FAFSA should be your top priority to get submitted, especially right now, because there's a lot of deadlines coming up at colleges. Do you have a link to this PowerPoint? Yes, I will make sure to provide a link of this PowerPoint, including all of my presentation notes. That way you can read through them too and understand what I was talking about. And we are recording this presentation as well, so that'll be uploaded and shared for you as well. How soon should seniors apply to the FAFSA? I have a junior, so I'm just planning ahead for next school year. Really great question. It opens up on October 1st. I would get it in before December 1st. I'm giving you a little bit of leeway there because, of course, it's always good to have some, but the second it opens, if you can get it done, get it done. As long as it's in before December 31st, I prefer to say December 1st, just so that you're way ahead of the curve. You're good to go, because most deadlines for schools and everything, if they are going to be really early, they're going to be in December. All right. Is the application required each year for higher education? Yes, it is. So you'll have to renew it every year, or if it's completely different information this year because your situation changed, you'll want to go through and really go through it with a fine-tooth comb. See the recording question. Yes, it's being recorded. The FAFSA is for federal and state grants for the state of Texas. And if you're in a situation where your student needs to do the TASFA will make them eligible for all state aid that they could be considered for, and some college-based aid in the cases where the schools do consider the TASFA as well. Where can we get a list of scholarships? So you can do that on Zello for your local scholarships, and on Going Mary, we match scholarships to your students. So go ahead and get them to make an account, log in, fill out their profile. It's quite a few questions. It takes them about 5 minutes, but it's basically every question that's common on a scholarship application. And then we'll show them exactly what they qualify for, and they can just go through really quick and easy. They'll also get email reminders pretty regularly saying, hey, this deadline's coming up. We saw you checked it out. Make sure you get this application in too. So you cannot apply to the FAFSA as a junior or a sophomore. That's something that you just do for seniors if they're going to college. And that's also what they would do every year once they're in college to complete. Oh, I'm sorry, it feels like a sales pitch. I try not to do that because it's more meant to be just tons of information about financial aid. So I'm sorry, Ben, if you felt like it was a sales pitch, that wasn't the goal. My bad. And yes, Going Mary is totally free. Thank you, Heather, for your comment about that towards Ben. I appreciate you. Looks like the question about Zello. Yep, all of your juniors will have Zello accounts. So you do this once you get an award letter from your colleges? Yeah, you can. On Going Merry, you can plug those in. But Going Merry can also be used before you get those award letters to find more scholarships, learn about financial aid, all that kind of good stuff too. Okay, more questions coming in. How does this look different for students who may receive athletic scholarships grants? It doesn't. The FAFSA is just as important for them. I actually know of a school that, you know, oftentimes doesn't consider their athletic scholarships if you haven't done the FAFSA. So it's just super important for every student to do the FAFSA to make sure they're prioritizing scholarships, because at no point in time are those going to penalize your student. They're only going to help you and help your student pay for college. Again, how early can a junior complete the FAFSA? You can't do it until October of next year when your student is a senior. I did provide my email. If you need me to provide it one more time, I'm happy to do that. I'll actually go ahead and do that just to make it super easy. And I'll also provide the support at Going Merry email just in case you need some extra help, like your account doesn't work or something's going on with it. I think it's always helpful to have more places to reach out to than less. Going back up. So glad y'all are so engaged and asking so many questions. It's so good. What's the time frame for the TAFSA? I believe it opens at the same time as the FAFSA. Heather, you could correct me if I'm wrong with that. It is open now, so you need to make sure you get it done. We've completed the FAFSA, but I'm confused as to how they let us know our SAR and our EFC. Do I need to go back into the site and check it, or will they notify us? So if you haven't seen it, then you can definitely just log into the site and look for it. It should be in there. Usually students get an email letting them know that it is available. So if they haven't gotten that yet, make sure it did actually fully go through and it was 100% signed, and double check. You can also feel free to reach out to me and I can give you a little bit more extra information and some guides, because we have some blog posts about that because students struggle sometimes. Do both parents have to be on the FAFSA? Absolutely not. If your situation is that your parents are divorced, you choose the parent that you live with more or provides more for you financially in the year. Usually if you live with someone more, they provide for you more financially. And if you're an independent student, you don't have to put either parent on there. For juniors, you should not be filling out the FAFSA now, but scholarships, absolutely. Is there a list of scholarships that are available for my child to apply to? Easiest way would be to, again, go on Going Merry and then look for those. A lot of times counselors will also at the school be aware of some scholarships that a lot of their students qualify for. So your student might be receiving some email notifications from your counselors already, letting them know, hey, a lot of our students win this scholarship. Everyone needs to be applying. How does work study work? Who approves this and who do you contact to set it up? So that's going to be determined again by the FAFSA. A school can extend it to you or not, and it's going to be a set number of hours with a set pay rate. The student, once you go, I'm assuming it hasn't changed significantly since I've been there, so I'll talk from personal experience real quick. I went into my school, they offered me a work study program. I was offered like 10 hours a week at $12 an hour was specifically the rate. For the entire, both of my semesters. I basically went into the job portal that they had on campus for work study students, and I applied to all of those. So if the school extends it to you, the easiest way is to just ask your financial aid office how they're specifically handling it and where your student needs to go to apply to the jobs. What happens after I applied for FAFSA? So once you've applied to the FAFSA, you will get your SAR and your EFC. Those will also be sent out to your schools so that they are aware of your financial need. And then that should be triggering around this time. If your students already applied to those schools, they should be getting their financial aid offer letters starting to trickle in about now. They typically come in sometime between February and end of March, April. For the Going Merry app, can we set up an account for it for our junior student? Absolutely, you can do that now. I personally help schools all the time that set up all of their freshmen through their seniors. And again, this is something that will go with them once they graduate so they can continue to use it through college. Our family is on a work visa. Will my son be able to apply for financial aid? That is a little bit more tricky, and I am happy to connect you with one of our financial aid experts. I have a couple of questions about that. There's certain situations where your student will qualify and certain ones where they won't. So it's a little vague, but if you will send me an email, I will get you the resource guide on that that goes over like every scenario where a student does and doesn't, depending on it, what they qualify for. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Can current college students use Going Merry? Absolutely, Brad. Appreciate all y'all's compliments. I'm so happy this is helpful. Can parents have a Going Merry account? Yes. So again, if you are a parent and you would like a Going Merry account, based on a ton of parent feedback this past year, we are actually almost ready to launch our parent accounts. You can also sign up for a parent newsletter. I'll just link that in here one more time for you if you would like to sign up for it. Go into Going Merry, though, as a parent and sign up for a student account. Once you sign up, you answer a couple of questions. You're going to answer all the questions as if you're a student, except for your name and your email address. Once you're into your full account, you're going to go to your profile and update the question, who are you? It'll ask you student, counselor, or parent, and you're going to change that to parent. As soon as our parent account launches in a couple weeks, you'll actually be automatically upgraded to a parent account. Super, super easy. Trying to get back up here to the questions. Apologize. All right, can you open a Going Merry account as a junior and look for scholarships now? Absolutely, it is the perfect time for juniors to be looking for scholarships. What about JUCOs? So they have scholarships. Junior college, I'm assuming that's what JUCO means. Shorthand. Yeah, they will have scholarships, and if they're on Going Merry or accessible outside of just the college's website, then they will also be on Going Merry. I do always recommend, though, that for college specific scholarships, always check on that college's website and talk to a financial aid officer. They will know every scholarship opportunity available to your students. And oftentimes there's really specific language that you have to search for or go to a specific department page to find, and they'll be able to just say, hey, go over here, and you won't have to do all the digging and work on it. So all the college money is due until my kid graduates. We don't have to pay for anything. I'm assuming you're asking about loans. I'm not sure if I actually understand that question. I'm so sorry. I'm assuming you're asking about subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Those loans specifically do not have to start being repaid until your student graduates or it becomes unenrolled. There's like an enrollment threshold that if the student falls below that, that's when they have to start making repayments. And for subsidized loans, that's when they would actually start accruing interest. With PLUS loans and with private student loans, those student loans will have to be repaid while your student is in college. Now, I will say, even though your student doesn't have to repay subsidized and unsubsidized loans while they're in college, convince them to do it anyway. Put $50 towards it a month, put $50 towards it a paycheck. It makes a huge difference in the amount of interest your student will be repaying at the very end of their college career. It really does. That's what I did with my student loans. It knocked thousands off of what I was going to end up owing in the long run. So make sure you take care of that if you can. Okay, what's the typical response time after applying for the FAFSA? It kind of varies. I'm not sure if you're asking about from the school or from the studentaid.gov site. You should be able to log in if you did it a couple months ago or a month ago or a couple weeks ago and see your student aid report now. If you're having trouble seeing it, you can always reach out to me and I'll see if I can find you a guide on how to do that. We've got one on Going Merry. Even though studentaid.gov is in our site, we still flag questions sometimes and try and help where we can. How do I apply for scholarships if the FAFSA can't be started until October 1st? So with those scholarships that are going to have deadlines before the FAFSA opens, so those rising senior scholarships, for an example, those scholarships are not going to have a FAFSA requirement. So if it's going to be if they're going to have a EFC requirement or an SAR requirement, you're going to see those start opening up after October starts. Especially the college-based ones. Those are probably the most common ones where we see a lot of EFC or SARs being required to apply to them. I hope that makes sense. If parents are married and not divorced, must both parents be on the FAFSA? In most situations, yes. If you have a specific situation that you want to email me about, I can double check and make sure. The answer should be yes, but I have seen niche examples where that answer is a little bit more nuanced. So I can't give you a full 100%, but if you want to email me, I can forward it over to our financial aid experts and make sure they take a look at it and confirm based on your situation, the answer being yes or no, if that helps. What is the TASFA? If you've done the FAFSA, you don't need to do the TASFA, but the TASFA is basically Texas's answer to make sure students that don't qualify for doing the FAFSA do still have access to some aid at the state level and at the college level. It's really great. I live in Alabama, full disclosure. We do not have anything like that. We actually just passed a FAFSA graduation requirement. Still pretty bummed that we haven't put forward any kind of Alabama aid system though. Oh, I'm so glad this has been super duper helpful. Yep. So if the student has an account and the parent has an account, the student account will stay a student account as long as they aren't marked as a parent. If you make a student account for yourself and you mark it as parent, it will be automatically upgraded. If you're a parent, you want that to happen because you'll actually get a couple of extra tools and resources. I hope that helps. But yeah, if you don't change it to being a parent, it will stay as a student account. And your student should create an account and then leave themselves as being a student. Feel free to reach out if that doesn't make a lot of sense. I can walk you through it. So happy this is helpful for you. Yeah, you can sign up as a mom trying to help your student out. We have a lot of parents on Going Merry for that exact reason. They created an account as a student, and then they have their student come in and do all the applications once they find one for them. So definitely make sure you create an account for you as a parent so you can keep tabs on it, and then create them an account so that you can nag them on it. And tell them to download the app on their phone because usually they're more likely to do it if you do that. Can we apply for mini scholarships in one time? Absolutely. Actually, a feature on Going Merry is that we bundle scholarships. If we see the same application across a few different scholarships, we'll actually put them all together so the student does one application instead of 3, 4, or 5. So that should help them out pretty good. What will help a student stand out on a scholarship application? It's a really great question. That's going to vary a little bit based on what the scholarship provider is looking for. I have one scholarship provider that's a local scholarship provider that hasn't selected a winner in like 4 years because they're looking for a student to say that they're going after a specific degree. And I'm just like, okay. And it's not a super obvious one, like it's a specific business degree. And if they would have just moved it over to business, it would make more sense for their students. But a lot of times it's just having an essay that, if it's an essay scholarship, an essay that really answers the question. Sometimes having a little personal anecdote really helps out the student too. We've got a lot of helpful tips and tricks on that. But if the scholarship provider is really just looking for like the metrics that they meet certain check boxes, it's really just making sure your student meets those check boxes and that they're applying to the scholarships that they're truly qualified for. Unfortunately, a lot of students spend a lot of time on scholarships that they're not qualified for. And so they just get an automatic rejection a couple of weeks later, and that doesn't feel super good. And then they feel discouraged. So making sure to encourage them to double check that they qualify. What qualifies as an independent student? I will actually see if I can pull up the Going Merry answer for that. Trying to think of the name of our resource guide so I can just link it. I might not be able to. I've got too many things running. We have a whole resource guide kind of going over the different systems or the different reasons why a student would qualify as independent. One example of why a student would qualify as independent is that they're homeless. So that's a good reason why a student might qualify. In my situation, I was considered an independent student. Both of my parents are living, but I was declared an emancipated minor at a young age. So I was considered completely independent of my parents, and I was able to apply to college as that, and their income and none of that really applied to me. But if you have a specific situation, again, you can feel free to reach out and we can see if we can answer that more one-on-one. And then I'll also, if you want to private message me your email, I will also reach out to you with our resource guide that has all of these answers kind of broken down too. Awesome. So my question got answered by Heather. Do you have any knowledge of in-state tuition reciprocity with Texas? I know that there's things like the Aggie Assurance. It's like a tuition. Oh, my brain is just stopped working. What is it called? Heather, you might have to help me with this one. My brain just went blank. It's a tuition system though, where like if you meet certain requirements at the school, then they will you'll qualify for full tuition coverage with a combination of Pell Grants and scholarships and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they just call it different things, I think, if I know what you're talking about, where they'll cover the cost of the rest of the cost of attendance if a student has certain like financial, if they qualify within like that financial range of salary and stuff like that, so, or income for the family. Is that what you're talking about, where they'll cover the cost of it?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, and I'm going to pull up my.
Well, I think they call it different things too, depending on the university.
Gotta love it.
Like Texas A&M Commerce has one called like the President's Promise, and like that's what they call it at their school. So I think they all kind of, it probably look for promise. It sounds like they use that word a lot. So maybe that's what a common one is that they use.
Yeah, I saw Aggie Assurance for Texas A&M, and then I saw Eagle Scholars or Emerald Scholars for another one. I'm going to see if I can grab it and link it from our email really quickly. If it'll load for me. Sometimes my stuff will work while I'm on the Zoom, sometimes it won't. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad it was helpful for you. Yep, again, you do want to go ahead and start applying to scholarships. If the FAFSA isn't open and you've got an underclassman, you can go ahead and start doing those. Those requirements for like underclassmen, like a junior, aren't going to be in place for them to have done their FAFSA. Once they're a senior, they're going to start seeing those requirements trickle in. I'm so glad it was helpful. Yeah, you're definitely not alone. This is so common that parents don't even know where to start, and then their students don't know where to start, and everyone gets super duper overwhelmed. Fabulous. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, before I hop off of here, I'll grab all y'all's emails and make sure I reach out to you guys with that resource guide. And I'll also, just so you guys know, I'm going to send to Heather and provide to all the other counselors at all of your high schools, just a resource bank. I've got a folder that I'm putting in like the scholarship strategies in a PDF format, the presentation that we went over today, and a couple of other things that we have that can help you and your students if you need a refresher at any point in time. And then this will be recorded and I think put on YouTube, so you can always refresh back to that.
Awesome. I think we've got 2 more questions at the bottom, and then we'll kind of round this up and let you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. So there's one question from Catherine saying, would local scholarships be just for the area where we're located? So like local to Frisco, or could that include local to where the college is? I mean, so what we kind of keep track of is local, usually like DFW area. Sometimes in Zello, you might see one, something else that's a little farther out, but it's just something we became aware of. So we put in there because that's where we want people to see it. But the local scholarships, if you were applying to where a college was located, probably most people, if that's really far away from them, like if you were applying to a school across the state, you'd probably want to just start researching like that college's university specific scholarships and kind of see like how does that college specifically award freshman scholarships or their incoming students. I don't know how that would be a good question on how you do the local ones in that area. And I don't know if you could, because a lot of the local ones for us here, sometimes have parameters on this is for a Collin County senior, or this is for a Frisco ISD senior, or this is for, you know, again, something related locally to us. So the local ones for outside of our area, your students may not be eligible for.
Yeah, for a lot of situations, local is going to be basically the district or the county or a cluster of counties. Sometimes for Texas, it can be an ESC region, but usually it's going to be where your high school is considered local. There are also regional scholarships, like community-based organizations that manage scholarships for large swaths of Texas. And so sometimes you can find those, but if you're looking directly where the college is located, unless it's really close to you, you're probably not going to qualify. But a lot of times you can qualify if your student transferred. Like a lot of times elementary schools will have a scholarship, and if your student went to that elementary school and then immediately transferred to another district, they can sometimes still qualify depending on their requirements and stuff. So you can always check back for that too.
Another good question I saw on here was, what is the difference between Going Merry and Zello? So Zello is an account that Frisco ISD provides your students, your 6th through 12th graders. And basically this is our college and career planning tool that we have. So Zello does a lot of things for your students. There are about 5 different personality, skills, interests, career inventories that really helps our students start to understand, like, what are my interests and how do I match those up with future careers. There's also career searches in there where a student, if they're interested in a certain career, can look up and view very up-to-date and cool information on colleges that have that specific degree and program. How much, you know, salary are we looking at after we're coming out of degrees in this area, you know, just videos, just things that will help, you know, raise their interest in those areas. And there's also college searches in there. So again, very up to date. You can look up, you know, Texas A&M and how much does it cost this year? What degrees do they have? And what does it take to get in there? And just what are their scholarships do they give? So it's really just kind of a one-stop shop for all of that type of exploration. And your students will use it in different classes throughout, again, 6th through 12th grade. They'll get in there at different times in different classes and with your counselors as well. In high school, we use it also, again, to house our scholarships. So it's, again, just an area we put those in for your students. And we also, that's where your students will add their community service volunteer hours if they are choosing to do that. That's not a requirement, but a lot of our students do. They like to earn that community service cord. And so they house and like keep track of their community service hours in there. And that way the high school can keep track of that. So that's Zello, that's from Frisco, that's for your students. And then again, Bethany has shared a lot tonight about Going Merry and just this resource, again, a free one where you can really start to use that to filter down for very specific scholarships and just see, again, Zello's got local things for you in here. Going Merry is going to have a much more like national list of things that your students may be eligible for. So awesome. And again, they have the FAFSA help in there as well, where your students can fill the FAFSA out through that. And it makes it so much easier. I'm personally really excited about that one. We really just found out about that, which is one reason why we're doing this tonight. So if you have a senior, if you have a rising senior, you're probably going to hear more about that in the fall, because we'll probably do a big push with our juniors to use that site, just because it looks really easy. And I want easy as a working parent sending kids to college. So that is the difference.
So I don't think I see any more questions that we haven't already answered, but I'll hang out here for a little while just in case someone does, you know, want to come off mute or if anything else trickles in. And I just really want to thank you all. You've been so good and so good at participating. I love when parents are really involved like this. It's such a great sign. And really your student success at finding the financial aid that they need really depends on you and you guys really encouraging them and reminding them of the importance of it. So good on you for being involved and coming on here late in the evening and listening and learning. Great job.